Very good morning, students. And today we'll be dealing with a new topic, that is schools of Hindu law. Now, if we talk about the schools of Hindu law, it means from where we belong to and what are the areas. School is one of the important tool to know about any particular law and how come this law came into existence. Now, while dealing with this topic, it is very important to keep it in mind the sources of Hindu law. A part of the ancient and the modern sources, the school, which plays a very important role in understanding Hindu law, is nothing but a very basic about any kind of personal law. Because so far as the personal law is concerned or understanding the personal law is concerned, it is nothing but a primary way out to find out how or to which school we belong to. So far as schools of Hindu law is concerned, we either belong to Mitakshara school or we either belong to Dayabhaga school. So, Mitakshara school and Dayabhaga school are the two major schools of Hindu law. These are also considered to be a main school of Hindu law. Now, what is there in Mitakshara school? How we would come to know that whether we belong to Mitakshara school or we belong to Dayabhaga school? All Hindu who will be covered under the head Hindu definition would be either belonging to Mitakshara school or would be either belonging to Dayabhaga school. Now we would try to find out we belong to which school. We belong to either Mitakshara school or we belong to Dayabhaga school. We all are aware about the rules which are prevailing in our home. Rule relating to the succession and rule relating to the inheritance. This would help you to understand which school you belong to. Now, taking into consideration these two main schools, we would study further or we would try to find out further whether to which school we belong to. First, Mitakshara school. So far as talking about Mitakshara school is concerned, these three to four things we must keep it in mind. First, this school is based on Mitakshara commentary. Now, commentary is what we have seen in our last lecture. That is nothing but a important source, primary and paramount source of Hindu law. So, commentary plays a very important role. When commentary plays a very important role, when on some aspect Shruti as well as Smriti do not speak anything about it, then in that case the commentaries made by the commentators on that Smriti help us to understand the actual idea behind that particular practice or a custom, and hence the commentary which is under the name Mitakshara commentary is nothing but Mitakshara school is based on that particular commentary. Next, Mitakshara commentary is based on Vijneshwara. Vijneshwara is again a particular work over which Mitakshara commentary has been written. So, Mitakshara commentary is based on the work of Vijneshwara. Vijneshwara speaks about the conflicting ideas provided under the Smriti whenever or there may be no information in that particular Smriti. In all these situations, the work done by the commentators help us to understand what could be the Hindu law so far as that particular aspect is concerned. So far as Mitakshara school, it is based on Mitakshara commentary. Why we call the same to be Mitakshara school? Because it is based on Mitakshara commentary. Mitakshara commentary again is based on Vijneshwara's work, and Mitakshara school is divided into five minor schools. So Mitakshara school again is divided into five minor schools. Now, which are these five minor schools? Actually, these are the five minor schools which we found in all over India. Suppose if we take into consideration the sub schools of Mitakshara school, then in that case we would find that there are these three five minor schools. First one is called as Banaras school, Another one is called as Mithila school. Third one is called as Dravidian or Madras school. Fourth one is called as Bombay or Maharashtra school. Fifth one is called as Punjab school. Now, students, while going through the name of these states, now you will be very well aware that these particular schools which are in a different parts of country, which are in different part of India, covers the entire population, majority population belonging to the Mitakshara school only. Now let us see further the introduction of these schools. Now, these minor schools are the outcome of different interpretation of Smriti by different authors. How come this particular minor schools came into existence? First of all, we knew that Mitakshara school itself is based on Mitakshara commentary. Mitakshara commentary is based on Vijneshwara's commentary. Then in that case, whosoever the other authors have interpreted the Smriti in a different ways, their own ways, the minor schools have come into existence from all those interpretation which took place among different authors. The author belonging to Banaras has given a different interpretation. The author belonging to Madras has given a different interpretation. Similarly, the author belonging to Maharashtra and the author belonging to Mithila have given a different interpretation so far as that particular Smriti is concerned, and as a result, we get a different minor schools having difference of opinion over that particular Smriti, and therefore we cannot say them that they are actually the followers of each other because they are having a different point of view, because they are having a different opinion, they are having a different interpretation relating to that particular smritis. Therefore, these itself have individually become a minor school and would be considered to be important minor schools of Mitakshara school. The second one is these different schools are originated from different local customs prevailing in different parts of India. Now different schools जो है मिथिला school, Punjab school, Maharashtra school, then Banaras school, then Madras school or Dravidian school, which we called it, is nothing but being originated from different local customs. We all may be celebrating a particular puja, but we may be having a different ways how to carry out that particular puja. We all enter into a contract of marriage, but in a different ways we perform the marriage ceremonies. So these different schools are originated from different customs which are prevailing in a different part of India. Now, next is Mitakshara is a commentary written by Vijneshwara on Yajnavalika. Mitakshara again is a commentary which is written by Vijneshwara, and Vijneshwara has written actually a commentary on Yajnavalika's Smriti. Yajnavalika Smriti means what? A Smriti written by Yajnavalika. What has been actually remembered by Yajnavalika, he has written that Smriti, and on the basis of that Yajnavalika's Smriti, Mitakshara name commentary has been written by Vijneshwara. Now, Mitakshara was written in 11th century, that is to say prior to Dayabhaga. Dayabhaga school is later conception. Mitakshara school is prior to Dayabhaga. So Mitakshara school is written in 11th century prior to Dayabhaga. Mitakshara consists of various smritis and rules of interpretation. Again, Mitakshara consists of what? There is a compilation of various smritis and rules of interpretation because Mitakshara is having a different minor schools. So every minor school is having a different rule of interpretation, different interpretation of any particular smriti, and hence this Mitakshara in all, in total, is a compilation of different various smritis and also the rules of interpretation. Students, now let us see what the Dayabhaga school of Hindu law says. Now, Dayabhaga school is based on the work of Dayabhaga written by Jimutta Vahana. This was the work written by whom? It is the work written by Jimutta Vahana. Don't worry, students. You don't have to keep all these names in mind permanently for the reason in the question paper they do not ask the same. They do not ask any question in relation to the authors. But again, it is we who, for the purpose of understanding the topic, must know actually what is who is the person behind bringing this school in existence. So Dayabhaga school is based on the work of Dayabhaga, and Dayabhaga is written by Jimutta Vahana. Jimutta Vahana wrote the commentary in 12th and 13th century. As in the earlier slide, we saw that Mitakshara is a commentary which was written in the 11th century, and Dayabhaga, which is based on Jimutta Vahana work, is a commentary written in 12th and 13th century. Dayabhaga professed to be a digest of all Smritis. Dayabhaga why became important, though written later, but how come it became important? Because it is considered to be digest of all Smritis. Dayabhaga school prevail in the state of Bengal and some part of Bihar. Now you know that to which school you belong to. So Dayabhaga school prevails in the state of Bengal and some part of Bihar. Now, if we take into consideration a case law, Privy Council in Ratchapudi versus Rajendra held that different schools of Hindu law have originated due to different local customs which were prevailing in different provinces of India. And hence, because of this prevailing of local customs in different provinces of India, has become a reason to have a different schools of Hindu law all over India. Now, next, if so far as the difference between Mitakshara school and Dayabhaga school is considered, these are basically 8 major differences, Mitakshara school and Dayabhaga school. Now students, let us understand what are the differences between Mitakshara school and Dayabhaga school, or what is the difference between these two schools. If we take into consideration the first point, we would find that Mitakshara school it recognizes survivorship and successionship for a devolution of the property. Now, what do we mean by the term survivorship and successionship for a devolution of the property? Students, survivorship means what? Whosoever survived would get a right in the property. Whosoever demised would be losing his right in the property. This is nothing but a rule of survivorship. Suppose, for example, if you live in a family wherein the 8 male members are there, because the male members were only considered to be a legal heir and the female were considered to be having a right to only maintenance in the family property. So if we take into consideration the 8 males, then in that case they would become a owner of that particular property, and similarly they would be exercising the rights equal proportion of the property unless and until the partition take place. Everyone would be a owner of the property excluding without excluding the other. So this is nothing but a rule of survivorship. Suppose in between a one dies, then in that case his portion of the property would be actually would be given to the or would be alienated to the other 7 members of the particular other 7 male members of that particular family. So this is nothing but a survivorship. For easy to understand, one must keep in mind whosoever survives. If the whosoever male survives would get a right in the property, whosoever get demised would be losing his right in the property. This situation would exist till the time the actual partition of the property takes place. Once the partition is done, then in that case, even after the demise of one of the particular party, his portion would be divided in his family member, that is to say his own children and wife, and not to the brother and sisters. So next is the succession. Succession means what? The father would be getting a property, and after the father demise, the son would be getting a property. So far as Mitakshara school, we could find both the actually laws, the law relating to survivorship and the law relating to successionship, so far as the devolution of the property is concerned. Survivorship rule applies to the coparcenary property and the succession rule applies to the separate property. Now students, I hope you know what do we mean by the term coparcenary property. The coparcenary property means a property which we get from our ancestor is called as a coparcenary property. This co-partnership property, unless and until becomes a individual property or a parted property, it go along with one generation to the another generation among all the male members in the family, and presently even the female being considered to be a co-partner till the time she remain unmarried. So till the time she remain unmarried, she would have a right over that particular co-partnership property. But in the earlier days, only the male were considered to be a co-partner of that particular property, and hence only the male were having a right to claim over the property. The female were only having a right to maintain to get maintained out of that particular income of that particular property. So survivorship rule applies to the co-partnership property and succession rule applies to a separate property. Next is Dayabhaga school. If we take into consideration Dayabhaga school, we would find that in Dayabhaga school, only the succession for devolution of property is applied. The rule of succession for devolution of property is survived. So here, no question of survivorship is there. Whatever the property belonged to the father would go to the son or would go to the legal heirs. That is only actually prevailing under the Dayabhaga school. Second point, if we take into consideration, if you could see in the PPT students, you will find that so far as Mitakshara school is concerned, Kopasnas acquires a right in the property by birth itself. When we are saying that there is a principle of survivorship, survivorship means what? Whosoever survives. For surviving, he have to take birth. So whenever a person takes birth in the property, everybody's portion in the property get decreased. Whenever a person who get demise, every other persons in the family would get their share in the property increased. So whenever a person or any of the member take birth in the family, then in that case he on the very moment of his birth acquires a right in the property, because now he acquires a right in the property. All the other members who were already actually enjoying the property would now be having a limited interest in that particular property, because the another person has taken birth and by virtue of his birth he has even simultaneously acquired a right in the property. If we take into consideration the provision provided in the Dayabhaga school, we would find that Kopasna acquires ownership only upon the death of the last owner, because here the rule of succession is there. Till the time the father is there, the son cannot ask for the partition, but the son would get the property only after the death of the father. Now third point, come to the third point student. If we take into consideration the provision related to Mitakshara school is, in this father has a limited power to alienate, because here which principle is applied? Here the survivorship. Till the time the property is not partitioned, the rule of survivorship would apply, and after partition the rule of succession would apply. We are considering here the main situation which is without partition. Suppose if the partition is not been done, father do not have any proportionate or definite share in the property, because his share in the property may get increased or may get decreased. The property share, whatever he is having a holding in the property, his share in the property may get decreased by any person if suppose take births in that particular family. The father's share may get increased if there is a death of any male member in the family. Hence, because the father do not hold any particular portion in that particular property, and hence he would be having a limited power to transfer that property to his son or to any other person, and hence under Mitakshara school it is considered that in this father has a limited power to alienate. If we take into consideration the provision provided under Dayabhaga school, we would find that father has an absolute power to alienate. Suppose if father want to alienate the entire property to somebody, he may give the entire property to somebody. If suppose he do not want the property to be given to the son and this particular property is his self-acquired property, then in that case if he want to give that particular property suppose to Udit, then in that case he'll be giving his property to Udit. Right? Now next is fourth point which is provided under Mitakshara school is, son can claim a partition even against his father. Father is living, son is living, because son has taken birth in that particular family. Therefore, whatever the property family owes, son would be having a right by virtue of his birth only, and hence he can claim a partition even against his father. But so far as the Abhaga school is concerned, son cannot claim a partition from his father unless and until the father, after his demise, alienate his property in the name of the son or die intested. Right? So if he dies intested, then automatically the rule of succession would apply and the son would going to get a property of his father. But if suppose father do not want to give the property to the son, then in that case he may, by entering into a testamentary document, give the particular property to any other he wish to. Now come to the fifth point, students. Son is under legal obligation to pay the Vyavaharika debts of his father, father's father, father's father's father. So in simple word, whatever the basically debt is secured by the forefather under Mitakshara school, if those debts were Vyavaharika. Now what do we mean by the term Vyavaharika? Vyavaharika means for good deeds. The debts is secured for good deeds. What could be the good deeds? Suppose for the education of the children, for the marriage of the children, to meet out any religious ceremony. In that situation, it would be considered to be a Vyavaharik debt. Now, another actually opposite word to this is a Vyavaharik debt. Now, a Vyavaharik debt means what? Debt for gambling, lust, and for bad things, then in that case it would be considered to be a Vyavaharik debt. So far as the paying of Vyavaharik debt is concerned, son is under legal obligation to pay the Vyavaharik debt of his father, father's father, father's father's father. But there is no as such pious obligation under Daya Bhaga school. Pious obligation means what? Pavitra duty. तो यहाँ पे पवित्र obligation, pious means what? पवित्र. So there is no any such pious obligation under Daya Bhaga school. That is to say, son is not under any legal obligation to pay the Vyavaharik debt which was secured by father, father's father, father's father's father. Right? Now, if we take into consideration the sixth point which has been provided under Mitakshara school, Kopasner is the owner of whole of the joint property and his share increases or decreases due to death or birth in the family. As we have already studied the student that all the members would be considered to be the copartners, because earlier days only the male were considered to be copartners. So only the male were having a right in the property, but their share in the property was not definite. Their share in the property may get increased, may get decreased. Suppose if anybody takes birth in the family, then in that case their share will be decreased. Suppose if anybody dies in the family, any male dies in the family, then in that case their share would increase. So Kopasner is the owner of whole of the joint property and his share increases or decreases due to death or a birth in the family under Mitakshara school. Under Dayabhaga school, Kopasner is having a definite share and is entitled to it. Whosoever is the co-partner would have a definite share and is entitled to it. No one can decrease or increase his share except the father. Suppose if the father, without making any testamentary document, dies, then in that case, whatever the property the father was having, his son or his family members as a co-partner would have a share in that particular property. If suppose there is only one son and a mother, then in that case the property would be divided in both. If suppose there is only one son, then in that case the property would be given to him. If there is suppose two daughters, one son and a wife, then in that case all the two daughters, the wife and the son would get a equal proportionate of that particular property. Now, if we take into consideration the seventh point of Mitakshara school, we would find that there are cognates and agnates. Cognates are postponed to agnates. Cognates are postponed to agnates. Now, what do we mean by the term cognates and what do we mean by the term agnates? So, agnates means what? The person who are related to father are called as a agnate. The person who are related to mother are called as a cognate. तो फादर से रिलेटेड जो है वो हमारे पास के रिलेटिव हैं और कॉग्नेट जो है वो हमसे दूर हैं. तो ऐसे वक्त में कॉग्नेट से है कॉग्नेट्स को पहले प्रॉपर्टी में राइट नहीं मिलता है. पहले प्रॉपर्टी में राइट किसको रहेगा? एग्नेट्स को रहेगा. द कॉग्नेट्स आर पोस्टपोन टू एग्नेट्स, दैट इज टू से द एग्नेट्स वुड बी हैविंग अ राइट ओवर द पर्टिकुलर प्रॉपर्टी. Here in Dayabhaga school, the cognates are preferred to many agnates. The cognates are preferred to many agnates means what? Under Dayabhaga school, the mother side relative would be having a right over the particular property at the priority to some extent, and the agnate would be, or the agnate's interest would be postponed. If we take into consideration the last difference between Mitakshara school and Dayabhaga school, we would find that the members of joint family property cannot dispose of their share while living undivided. That is to say, unless and until the partition takes place, members of the joint family property cannot dispose of their share. Why they cannot dispose of their share? Because their share is not at all definite. There is a limitation over the power to alienation. लिमिटेशन डाला गया है, एलिनेट नहीं कर सकते हैं, डेफिनेट शेयर नहीं है, तो जब डेफिनेट शेयर ही नहीं है तो फिर हाउ दे आर गोइंग टू डिस्पोज ऑफ देयर शेयर, राइट? एंड व्हाई दे डू नॉट हैव अ डेफिनेट शेयर? बिकॉज दे आर लिविंग अनडिवाइडेड. They are living undivided, and hence till the when they'll divide, their property would be again partitioned, and after the partition of that particular property, one member would be in a position to say, or the other members would be in a position to say that it is yes particularly their share and they are having a right to alienate the same. But unless and until they are living undivided, no member of joint family property can dispose of their share, claiming that they are having a power to alienate the same, because their power to alienate the same are limited one. Now student, let us see the last one is under Dayabhaga school. The members of joint family property can dispose of their share while living undivided. Suppose if son says, I do not want to have a share in the particular property, father please you give that particular, whatsoever share is going to come in my portion after your demise, you just give that particular property to the mother or to the daughter. Then in that case, member of joint family property can dispose of the share while living undivided. All of them are living together, but one of the person who is going to get the property only after the demise of the father. That is to say, it is clear that at present he do not have any of the right in that particular property. So he can definitely, when he do not have any of the proper right in the property, for future also, he can refuse to have any kind of right in the particular property even while they are living undivided. So this, I hope you have understood the difference between Mitakshara and Dayabhaga. These are important schools, and again I must say you will always receive a question over this particular topic. So students,